My name is Ryan and I am an architectural designer for a property firm in Port Elizabeth, and I have been pursued by Jesus. And so this is the story of how God, in His kindness, introduced Himself to me. So, I was raised in a Christian home and I grew up to be quite the goody two-shoes. I did my absolute best to do whatever I thought was right. And so I was pretty good in my own eyes. But at the age of 21, I realized for the first time that I actually didn't know if God was real or not. I had a lot of friends that were partying and doing all sorts of things that didn't sit well with me. And I myself was doing all sorts of things that I shouldn't have been doing. But I started to look at them and I'd started to feel like I was missing out on a whole lot of fun. And so I basically reached the point where I realized that I better find out if God is real or not. Basically so that I could go and do those things that I shouldn't have been doing. And so at the time I was studying with a group of Christians, and they were just such an amazing bunch of people. They were kind, they were full of joy, and they were friendly, and they kept inviting me to things, and I wasn't like that. I didn't like people, and they just seemed so different to me, and they seemed to know something that I didn't. They seemed full of life. And so I decided I better go and visit their church. And so I did. I visited a different congregation though, and so I didn't know anyone. I was very shy. I wanted to sit at the back and sneak out as soon as it was done, but the welcoming team was so good that I ended up in the second row. And the preacher, while he was preaching, paused and singled me out and said to me that God had given me a vision. Given him a vision of me. And he started describing exactly what I'm like. And this was a man that didn't know me. I didn't know anyone there. And I knew that that had to have been God. And so I had to go back. And so fast forward 2 weeks, and a pastor from Cape Town had come to preach, and he spoke about being a hypocrite as a Christian. So saying that you're a Christian but you don't actually know God. And as he'd said that, I knew that was me. And he'd ended off by saying that there are people there today, that day, that say that they know God, but they don't, and that you're going to stand in front of God one day, and He's going to say, "Go away from me. I never knew you." And as He said that, I knew that was me, and this fear came over me, and I realized for the first time that I wasn't on my way to heaven, and I just broke. I was very hardened up until then, and for the first time in years, I sobbed. I went up to the front for prayer. It was very weird for me to cry, and so my eyes were shut and I wouldn't open them. And I'd felt about 10 to 15 hands come. I'd felt that there were people all around me praying for me, and someone was wiping tears off of my cheek. It wasn't until about a year later, in talking about this moment, telling a friend, that I found out that there were only 2 people praying for me, and neither of them were wiping the tears off of my cheek. It must have been God. And so that was the moment that I met God, and since then I've been journeying with Him daily, and it's been the adventure of a lifetime. And I love Him.